right. Thanks for listening while we take that short break here at Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com. And yeah, we're going to get back to your host.
This is London. Yeah, well, actually, it's Spain. Valencia, Spain. Really? Viva España. Viva los todos. Except the psychos. Oh. Hey, folks. Welcome to the Daily Chaos. Yeah. The show ain't daily, but the chaos is. Coming to you with Revolution Radio. God bless them. I was trying to stream out on YouTube today as well, but it all cocked up. But hey, no worries. This is a radio show. Yeah, and it's going to be an interesting show as well. I hope you can hear for a start. Okay, God's honest truth, yeah. I didn't have any kit last night. I'm about, 36 hours kitless. I'll explain why in a bit. I was working, yeah. I was doing something useful for you. I don't know what I said. Did I even introduce myself? Well, anyway. Hey, hi. And my guests have both flunked out. And one of them, because he didn't get any kit last night either, useless. And the other one, because he had tech problems. They both sound like me. So if you were tuning in, hoping to hear from Mr. J in Canada, giving us the latest scoop from there. And David Scott Kane in Australia. Well, he's not here either. So solo. Yeah, flying solo. Oh, blimey. Hold on. I need a sound. Right, that's enough of that. Okay, so yes, you are listening to Revolution Radio, revolution.radio. If for some bizarre reason this is streaming out to YouTube, I don't think it is, then, revolution.radio, pop over and support the place, and I'll see you in the comments there, and we'll have a bit of fun and all the rest of it. And so we might have Boozy pop in later, Chris Boozy, all the way from Libtadia, California, to give us his regular update on what's going on stateside, and he and I regularly compare notes between Europe and the North American continent. So anyway, he should be popping in about the last half an hour of the show. So I've got 90 minutes to fill, and I figured I would use it in a different kind of a way today, because I thought it was, I'll come on to that. So what is going on? Before I continue, let me just make sure that people can actually hear me. Can you hear in the chat? If you can hear, let us know, for goodness sake, please, just so that I know that we are. Yes. Oh, thank you, Pat Rabbit, who is on after me, 2 hours time. I'll tell you, it is so good to be doing radio again with Revolution Radio. It really is. It's awesome. This is my third show back with them, and I still haven't sorted out the tech after my, 6 months off, basically in a huff off the back of the last, the election we will never forget. And so it goes on. So what is going on at the moment? Biden, Putin, summit. Ha! Lee said, soon as mended. What a joke. I mean, unbelievable, unbelievable. Beforehand, back stateside, he had a bit of an awkward moment, didn't he? He had a bit of an awkward moment. I know you've heard it before, and I'm sorry. I'm sorry, my stateside cousins. I'm sorry. I know you're embarrassed. You deserve to be. No, you don't. You don't. You don't. Deep state stuff, shenanigans and all that. We know what happened. Anyway, listen to this. I'm sure you know what this clip refers to, but I think it needs to be played and played and played.
In a weekend interview, Vladimir Putin laughed at the suggestion that you had called him a killer. Is that still your belief, sir, that he is a killer?
To answer the first question, I'm laughing too. They actually, well, look, I mean, he has made clear that the answer is, I believe he has in the past essentially acknowledged that he was, there are certain things that he would do or did do. But look, when I was asked that question on air, I answered it honestly. But it's not much of a, I don't think it matters a whole lot in terms of this next meeting we're about to have.
And look,
oh yeah, that was it. That was it. Could you hear that clip? Let me know in the comments, because I am still trying to wrap my head back around the tech yeah, the audio mixing and all that. And I think my theme tune, you couldn't hear it. I don't think you heard it. This was it. I'm only going to play a bit. Okay, so if you could hear that, let me know as well. If you could hear the clip and if you could hear that, because they're coming in from different sources. So that's very useful for me to know, so that I can fine tune this most organic radio show and hopefully make it eventually work. Yes, Biden, Putin, unbelievable. I mean, it really, really was quite something. I watched that press conference, well, both of them off the back of their 2-hour chat or whatever. And that picture of the two of them, when they were, you know, beforehand or whatever, the photo op. I mean, Putin he's so in charge, isn't he? He's in charge. I'm really, really sorry. This it's not just for the States, it's for the whole Western world. Yeah, we are losing the balance here, and we've got Russia in cahoots with China, who scare me a lot more than Russia. I mean, Putin was saying in his press conference yesterday how he's Russia's the head honcho, they got the most nuclear weapons and all the rest of it. I am far more concerned about China. There was a bit of a chat about predictability in that press conference yesterday, wasn't there? And Biden was saying, well, look, don't accuse me. Sorry, not Biden. Putin was saying, don't accuse me of being unpredictable. You know, you're the guys that change the goalposts every 5 minutes, sort of thing. Personally, people, I'm worried about China. It's China that is unpredictable. Or is it just predictable that they're about to storm into Taiwan? There was another, 36 jets or something flew over Taiwan airspace yesterday. Another infringement. They are just getting more and more gung-ho. And, I mean, it just does not help having China Joe in the White House, the leader of the Western world. Stateside, you don't need to be embarrassed. All of us in the Western world should be embarrassed. We should be embarrassed about the mainstream media. Yeah. The guys and gals that are supposed to hold power to account and failing so dismally. And that is why we've got this guy who, if you sifted through those Hunter Biden laptop emails and stuff, we know he's been doing deals, or his son was trying to set up deals with China's top spy when they weren't, I don't know, cutting crack cocaine together or something. Unbelievable. You're getting a little bit of pushback from the media saying, what is it with Joe? What's the problem? It's a bit late. You know what I mean? It's a bit late. Very, very concerning. So that's Biden, Putin. We've had the G7 summit. That was embarrassing too, for a start, because was it G7? I counted 9, or was it 10? And at least 2 of them were unelected officials, people that were appointed behind closed doors in a locked room. The EU, the European Union. Incredible. Those people always get, there's no nation there. They haven't got a nation. Oh yeah, they try to pretend they have. They've got a flag and they've got an anthem and all that. It's not a nation. I don't know why. Well, I do know why. It's all about the New World Order. The New World Order. And we'll be coming on to that in a little bit more detail in a minute as well. But yeah, so it wasn't actually a G7. It was a G7 plus 2 unelected puppets who apparently are just as important, even though nobody ever voted for them. But then who voted for Biden? And I don't know. Who voted for anybody? I don't know now. I mean, was Dominion in France when Macron, came in and from nowhere? Last election round? I don't know. We're going to see. It's going to be interesting next year. There is talk in France about changing various goalposts to ensure that Le Pen doesn't get in next year. Next year, yeah. This time, next year, there will be, almost certainly, unless there's some sort of, real weird, strangeness that goes on, a bit like election 2020 with Trump Biden. Unless there's something like that, we are going to see a new French president. And the French, they've woken up a lot in the last few years. I mean, I thought they'd woken up enough last election round, and I'm not entirely convinced that Macron got in legitimately. But anyway, hold on. Oh, it's raining. It's raining. I don't know if you can hear that on my mic. Hold on, let me turn up the thing. We've had hail here. Hail today. Hail. The size of, I don't know, small testicles. Yeah, we've had hail this morning here in Valencia, sunny Valencia, Spain, where it's been 35 degrees this week. So anyway, we're having a nice summer storm today, and it is lovely. But yes, so G7, that was embarrassing too, I think. Bojo, yeah, Boris Johnson, calling Biden a breath of fresh air. Calling an unelected globalist puppet a breath of fresh air. And so why did he do that? Well, I think we know why with Bojo now. I think we know why. I'm not going to go into that today. I don't want to get back into all the, 101 reasons why Bojo is just a complete globalist tool and not in charge. But yeah, a breath of fresh air, he called Biden. It's pretty sickening, And then you got Macron, who's, I don't know, acting like Biden's personal suppository. Unbelievable. I heard that Biden, he got up in the morning and he had to take a crap and he found Biden up there. No, not Biden. No, he found Macron. I didn't have any kip last night. Yeah. Unbelievable. I mean, it's pretty horrid. Pretty horrid. Seeing, just this doddery old bloke can't hold it together, can barely string a sentence, can't string a sentence together. I mean, you just heard it in that clip. That I didn't bugger up the audio there. That pause, that was Biden. I had a pint in the middle of that. Unbelievable. And then Biden forgetting that he'd left home and confusing England for New England. Didn't even know where he was. Oh, Mom. Oh, sorry, no, I can't do an American accent. Oh, you wonderful ice cream here. I had no idea the ice cream was so good in New England. In Cornwall, famed for his ice cream. And all of that lot are crooks, letting China off the hook. Oh, Biden, he did his thing, didn't he? Pretended that he was wanting to get some sort of a resolution with the EU, for example, and all of the G7 to give a hard line to China None of it is binding. None of it is binding. The EU, they are in hock to China, and so's China Joe. Hunter Biden was in touch with Xi Jinping, for crying out loud. We learned that in the email drop as well. Anyway, yes, so that's all good. UK restrictions, extended lockdown. It's not exactly total lockdown, but I mean, for example, all the pubs are still shut. And that's what people care about. Yeah. So we were supposed to be out on, what was it, the 21st of June. Now it's been put back to the 19th of July. Despite another U-turn, classic Bojo, yeah. Oh, no. I can't foresee any reason, can't foresee it. Right at the last minute, U-turn. Goes back on his word. It's just classic Boris. He's done it with everything. And by the way, we didn't get Brexit. We've got an Irish Sea border. He broke up the UK, the United Kingdom. And his party, by the way, for you folks outside of the UK, around the world, his party is called, it's not just the Conservative Party, it's actually the official name is the Conservative and Unionist Party. England, Scotland, Wales, Northern Ireland. 1/4 of the quota of that union, effectively, in terms of trade, isn't in it. It's answerable at the moment, as things stand, to Brussels, to the EU. That's not Brexit. And if anybody is listening to this kind of wondering what else, we're still on the hook to the ECB, the European Central Bank. If that goes down because, I don't know, basically the global Ponzi fiat thing, currency, whatnot, and all the markets, cock up, then you see someone like Deutsche Bank go down. Deutsche Bank, has an exposure of about, I think, 1/3 of the global GDP. Yeah. So if they go down, and they have been doing some juggling, all this, good bank, bad bank, trying to put all the bad debt into the bad wing of the bank or something. But nonetheless, if they go down, the ECB will, bail them out or whatever. The UK will be in hock to the tune of hundreds of billions of pounds. A bankruptcy-inducing exposure. That is because of the commitment that we have to them. We didn't get Brexit. We got Brino. Brexit in name only. And that's the British Prime Minister. Chummy. Oh, he's a lovely chap. People are so sold on him still. Personality politics. The last time we had a situation with such a classic case, really, of personality politics, well, in the States, it was Obama, wasn't it? In the UK, it was Tony Blair. Cool Britannia, all that. And look where that went. 2 million dead in Iraq. Goodness knows how many of our troops. Yours, ours, all over the place. Aye. And Tony Blair now is an advisor to Bojo. He's an advisor. He's a vaccine advisor. He's advising on how to get the vaccine out. How to get people injected with this so-called vaccination that doesn't actually vaccinate. Unbelievable. We're going to be coming on to that. We're going to be coming on to all the scamdemic news in a little bit. Going to be talking about that very, very interesting press conference about Fauci, about Fauci from, what was it? Congresswoman Green. God bless her. I'll be coming on to that. The most amazing, never mind the press conferences yesterday in Moscow, that Fauci press conference, which I'm going to be playing on this show in full, because people have got to hear it and we got to get it out. We got to get it. It is out. Amazing. Dynamite. Absolute dynamite. Incredible. I'm not hyping this. I think it is possibly the most explosive press conference I've ever heard. And I only heard it yesterday because I was late. It happened on Tuesday. I heard it yesterday, and I was so amazed by the forthrightness of those Congress people that, oh no, God, I sound woke, don't I? Of those representatives from the House. I was so blown away by it. I transcribed near as damn it the entire thing, bar just a bit of repetition, which took a little while. But the reason I did that was because I thought it's all very well sharing, the video and what have you. And I'll be doing that as well. And I hope you will. We must, but also, for example, on Facebook, you share videos or your web pages or what have you, or I do anyway, and then nobody sees them. As soon as there's I don't know whether there's something in the algorithm or what. I know I'm shadow banned there, have been for years since I was doing Daily Brexit. But yeah, just an incredible press conference. So I'm going to be playing that in a little while. And cracking. There's a new conservative news service in the UK that everyone's got excited about, GB News. And I mean, people have been very excited by that because people are so fed up with the BBC. The BBC, that, for example, I mean, folks all around the world have heard, about Orange Man bad and rations. Well, the BBC were doing it too. They were doing it for about 4 years solid. 4 years, at least. They were doing it all of that time. And then when Mueller found nothing in that investigation, they didn't even apologize for lying to the British public in the case of the BBC and World Service. So all around the world, they didn't even apologize. And the same with all the mainstream media. You'll notice on this show, Daily Chaos, I talk a lot about the media because the media is the kingpin. It's not the politicians, it's the media. Because if the media is honest and reports on this, they wouldn't get away with it. Anyway, yes. So everybody was very excited. GB News, yeah. It sounded like it might be a small c conservative news service, which is something we just don't have in the UK, just like in the States. I mean, a bit of Fox, some of it. But that's it, Tucker, Hannity, maybe. I don't know. Mind you, I think they're shoring up a wee bit, some of the conservative base at Fox, because they really do realize how screwed not only the United States, but the free world is now. And I see it in some of the mainstream media now. I mean, the Daily Fail, for example, the Daily Mail, which is a pretty awful rag. And it's almost like a soft porn rag these days. The kind of, you look at their homepage on the internet, whatever, trying to show as much cleavage and bum as they possibly can get away with. But they do come up with some good journalism as well. And in the past, they've come up with some very, very good journalism. But the entire, but rarely, yeah. But rarely. Most of it's just pap. And GB News has been lauded as though this shouldn't make you suspicious. GB News has been lauded by the entirety of the mainstream media because this guy, bloke called Andrew Neil, Brillo pad, because he's got a hair like an oven cleaner thing, one of those metal things, and he's been in news for, I don't know, 40 going on 400 years or something. He's a real old school journalist, but totally corrupt. And if you need the proof, it's just, I mean, he had a show on the BBC for years. He'd bring out Alistair Campbell, who was Tony Blair's spin doctor. The guy, this might ring a bell with some of you, that sorted out the sexed up dossier that took all of us into the Iraq war in cahoots with Atnad in Spain and W. So Tony Blair's man that sorted out the evidence which turned out to be some paper that had been written by a postgrad student or something. And it was complete bunk, absolute nonsense. The guy that sealed that deal, that sexed up dossier, Alistair Campbell, was always on, wheeled in and out of this bloke, Andrew Neil, his show. Clearly chummy. Never talked, this bloke, Andrew Neil, never talked about things like the Pakistani rape gangs. Never asked the questions that matter. It's not what they ask that counts. And this guy, for example, Andrew Neil, he used to be the editor of the Sunday Times, very prestigious, like the New York Times was maybe 20 years ago. Prestigious paper. Well, I mean, both of them were lying to us all the time, but we didn't know it then, at least. They seemed prestigious. They are prestigious in many eyes. Less so today, thank goodness. People are waking up slowly. Andrew Neil, very revered journalist, very bright, very highly intelligent guy, brilliant at interviewing. But you know what? And I tell you this, as somebody who's worked in journalism for some time, it's not the questions that they ask. It's the questions that they omit to ask. That's what counts. So this GB News thing, guess what? No. They're on air now. I actually put a Facebook post up. I said, you know, if GB News doesn't expose the Great Reset within its first 24 hours, it is fake. They haven't even mentioned it. They haven't even mentioned it. So there you go. I'm sorry, folks, that we're getting all excited about GB News, if you're listening in from the UK. But come on. I mean, you only have to look at the network. It's like Carlin said, excuse me. It's like George Carlin said, isn't it? It's a big club and you ain't in it. But they are. They are. So they set this thing up, GB News, and all the rest of the the usual fake stream lot. They're all backing it and saying, oh, yeah, fantastic. It's just the latest distraction, just to give people hopium. It's a bit like UKIP. It's a bit like a party in the UK that was supposed to be for the people. But then it turns out that the NEC is full of corrupt establishment types that didn't give a stuff about the membership of the party and put dreadful leader after dreadful leader in off the back of Nigel Farage. He was the guy that had led UKIP and had done very, very well for UKIP. Now, I don't know about Farage now. Farage is telling everybody to get vaccinated. What does that tell you? On the show last week, I had an interesting little bit of a interesting question with some interesting answers from my two guests last week who bothered to turn up. Yeah. And thank you, Davey. No, blimey. Oh, God. Yeah. No sleep last night. Thank you, Fergie. God bless you if you're listening. And Stephen Lang and Dave Fergie, they were on last week. And I asked him, I said, look, I want to think the best of Trump. The one concern I have, the only thing, it's not bad, actually, when you consider, because most leaders that come in, they've got their mandate to do X, Y, Z and all the rest of it. They ignore that and they impose a whole load of other stuff that they were never supposed to do. That's what normally happens. With Trump, that didn't happen, did it? He ticked the boxes that he had promised on that soapbox. But the one thing I said to my guests last week that concerned me was, why is he pushing the vaccine? Why is he pushing this vaccine? This barely tested vaccine, which doesn't even have FDA approval. What's that? The Federal Drugs and whatnot thingy. Yeah. That basically, make sure that the drugs that people are given, the medicine, whatever, is safe. They have not approved any of these vaccines, these so-called vaccines. What does that tell you? It's experimental. That's what it tells you. Yeah. Now there was a reason I said that, wasn't there? Oh yeah. So why is Trump pushing it? That's the question I had. Now they said to me, they came back to me, and they have basically been in the same position, these two guys, as me over the last several years. Really, all the best, hoping, with Trump and all the rest of it. And they still do. And they said, look, Ollie, I think on that point, maybe you need to relax, because he has to play politics. He has to play politics somehow. I don't know. I don't quite. I just wonder if he's at best cornered himself over the vaccine stuff. I still want to think the best of him, though. I listened to him last night on Fox. Unfortunately, he didn't say a lot that he hasn't been saying for, the last little while. But yeah, I mean, he was a good president. You remember the way he dealt with Russia? He wasn't on the back foot. The United States and the Western world now is on the back foot to Russia. Not hugely, but we've definitely lost ground on where we were, 7 months ago, whatever it was. So that's nice. Yeah. And, I was going to play this. This is something about, from Eric Clapton. Eric Clapton, he was talking about the COVID vaccine and his experience with it. I hope you can hear this clip.
Vaccine took my immune system and just shook it around again. Agony and chronic pain. I went and had the second, and then it got really bad. And within about a week, I had lost. My hands didn't really work. It's there until I go to bed, and I take sleeping pills because I can't sleep because of the pain.
Yeah. More and more stories like that. And I will be coming on to the FIRE FAUCI ACT to discuss this. Now, I figured that a lot of you don't know who I am from Adam. And maybe you'd like to know a bit more about this new boy. Well, actually returned. I was kind of, we're off for a while and I'm back on Revolution Radio. And so I thought I would play you something which I recorded. It's a monologue. It's something that I recorded 2 or 3 days before the election. And I put it out around and about, and nobody watched it because, Facebook banned it, and YouTube, I don't know. Yeah, the usual stuff. But I want to play it because, for one thing, I want to get to know you, and vice versa. I want you to know where I'm coming from, but also because it's just as relevant now as it was then. It was talking about the election and the importance of what's going on with that election. Go on. So yeah. Now, hey everybody in the chat room. God bless you. Lady Horse, Navy, SJ, Cat Fred, Pat Rabbit, who's on after me, Lone Gunman, Sorry Sunflower, and Walther Mauser, Zippy 101, Carl Bibby. He's one of my old muckers from Daily Brexit. Everybody in the chat room, say hello to Carl. He's a lovely bloke. Yes, it's good to see you there. If anybody wants to call in and have a chat, this clip I'm going to play you now, it's quite long, but hopefully you won't get bored. If you do get bored, just tell me in the comments and I'll stop it. But I suspect, I don't know, we'll see. But I'm going to play it. But it goes on for about 20 minutes. And it's not quite as animated as I am, because I probably had a bit of kit before I recorded it or something. But anyway, if you do want to call in, maybe after the clip's finished, or after you implore me to stop it, then get me on Skype, Olly Connelly, OLLY CONNELLY, and I'll put that in the chat room as well. Connect with me on Skype, and you can call in and have a bit of a chat. So this is the order of play for the show today. Yeah, so we've covered more or less the news, more or less. Oh yeah, FBI involvement on January the 6th. Tucker Carlson, good on you, mate. Good on you. Yes. Actually, I want to read something. I want to read something very, very quickly from a chap called Bartholomew Chiaroscuro, who is a wonderful writer, a brilliant head, with some incredible points, some fantastic, a great research. He's the kind of guy that we need on GB News. Yeah, in my opinion. I'm going to read you this. He probably, like me, was watching his Tucker, and he got his ire up, and he wrote this brilliant piece. And he's on the show this time next week. And here we go. Bartholomew Chiaroscuro writes, "We now know protesters were let in by the Capitol Police. Nobody except Ashley Babbitt was killed. CNN were present. Other journalists were present. BLM was there. Antifa was there. The FBI were literally hiring people to take part in the Capitol invasion." That was an inverted commas Capitol invasion. "And Ashley Babbitt's husband has never been given the name of her killer. The public had never been given the name of her killer. Her killer has never, and probably will never, face any charges. Hundreds of people have been held for extended periods without charge. Hundreds have been detained, effectively incarcerated, for extended periods without proper due process. Footage and recordings are being deliberately withheld. An unarmed political protester was murdered by a cop who, unlike Derek Chauvin, will never face charges. Those who harmed nobody at all have been imprisoned, whilst the only murderer that day has not. The FBI and the Capitol Police and news organizations, presumably with the knowledge and support of senior Democrats, conspired to create the invasion and then conspired to lie about it. Putin was right. There is nothing he has ever done that the Democrats have not done. If we include foreign wars with little justification, then the human rights record of Joe Biden is worse than the human rights record of Vladimir Putin by several 100,000 deaths." I return to this issue because it matters. I return to it because we have an illegally serving US president. The truth is not what a partisan media decides, or even what a cowardly Supreme Court accepts, knowing its falsehood, but being too fearful to intervene. The truth is not a piece of clay to be shaped into whatever serves corporate interests best, or whatever helps the most corrupt and most venal assume power. Killing dissidents, imprisoning without trial, faking news, criminalizing political disagreement and opposition, hounding what few investigative journalists not beholden to your regime still exist, breaking your own laws again and again, stealing elections, militarizing your capital, persecuting whole sections of your populace, stoking riots and political violence, accusing your enemies of every crime you yourself have committed, corrupting police and federal forces into being a sort of informal, secret police serving your political party. If it got into power illegally, sounds like a dictatorship, looks like a dictatorship, and acts like a dictatorship, guess what? It's a blooming dictatorship. He didn't say blooming, actually. He used a ruder word, but I'm not going to use that because I'm a good boy. Right. Okay. So I will play this clip. That guy, yeah, Bartholomew Chiaroscuro, who is a Brit, as best I understand. I only ever talk to him, like, in copy. I wanna extract information from that man's head. He writes pieces like this; they just come out of his ears. It's brilliant, brilliant, fantastic. Anyway, so he'll be on next week, and yeah, right. This before we get in to the FIRE FAUCI ACT and that press conference. Yeah, I just would like you to know a little bit more about where I'm coming from, so that
about for hours bumping into.
Here we go. Here we go.
Morning, afternoon, evening. Olly Connelly here with dailychaos.news with a message from Europe for my stateside cousins at the time of a pivotal election. I feel compelled to say, if Donald J. Trump is not elected for a second term as President of the United States, it will lead to the biggest human tragedy in a generation, maybe in 100 years, possibly even in the course of our known history. His removal is an event that would have far-reaching implications, not just in his nation, but throughout the world. It would affect us all, living or unborn. Now, you may think this president vain, narcissistic, bombastic, uncouth, and you'd be right, he is those things. Yet those are not primary characteristics to fret over in a global leader at a point in history such as this. So what is this point in history? Well, look, I'm 50 plus years of age, and through my time, I've seen the opportunity of humankind serially cashed in by corrupt leadership throughout the Western world, particularly in the UK and in the US, two countries that I have studied. It has become clear how a succession of immoral leaders with their cheaply bought lieutenants have allowed our countries to be bled of treasure, of possibility, and on illegal or immoral battlefields of our very people, in exchange for bribes, for anything from shiny trinkets to crony directorships, sometimes for silence, often for fame, for false legacies, and for family gain. From the Thatchers and Major, Blair, Brown, Cameron, May, this has been the way. I've seen it with Bushes both, with the Clintons, with Obama, and with Biden. All of these and their sergeants have profited personally beyond their salaries, beyond public service, and into the realms at least of nepotism, and generally into the territory of tremendous profit, all the while as our great beacons of global hope are sacked and reduced, impoverished, and declined. In my time, such has been our establishments. Never have I witnessed pure and benevolent public service, but always the direct opposite, and at a most terrific cost to our peoples. That may have changed. In my time, as a tiny few have robbed us blind, I have seen our societies enslaved by debt and tax, our time stolen to the point we work not twice but thrice as hard per family, our liberty traded as global interests check our cultural heartlands, and our minds deranged with our very intuition belittled, and our common sense reprogrammed. All of this has been deliberate. Our leaders actually have conspired against us. Their pockets filled, a strategy pursued, their plan not hidden, but our eyes diverted, our worries short-term, our hopes most human, our delusion profound. We have been hoodwinked, deceived by traitors, so long coming, yet incredible to see. Yet here we are, no longer sleepwalking, but sprinting now, lemming-like, into tyranny. This is the New World Order, made clear by so many, by all of the above, commonly stated, prized, and the prospect even boasted of. But it was only a phrase, this New World Order, with no meaning to most, rarely discussed, never debated, far less mandated. Our day-to-day elsewhere, our thoughts astray and with trace glance at long-term, engrossed in short-term, our attention diverted, our guard naive, limp, disabled, cynically perverted. In my time, conditioned such we are, we trusted our leaders. Despite our deterioration, we hoped and thought the best. We were wrong, and here we are. Our God-given logic should tell us, for example, this coronavirus is hyped. When before have we measured a virus decisions based not on its effect, but on its infection? And from experts that point out their tests are fallible, even a common cold in one's distant past said officially by the CDC to be capable of eking a positive diagnosis. Boris Johnson, for example, having said that only 7% of the PCR tests can be relied upon, and official EU statistics showing year-on-year European death rates being lower this year almost entirely across the continent. The WHO having downgraded this so-called pandemic to the level of flu. Yes, they have. It's just not on the news. Reality is being ignored, and you may well ask why. Consider, do you care if you or yours have this COVID-19? Or are you concerned as to its possible effect? Do we not understand the basic principles of our immune systems, that we require foreign bodies to shore up and preserve us? Is the bottom line not that we are infected with this, with anything, but that our bodies are working to eliminate risk and to be stronger for the process to become immune? COVID can be dangerous. So too can be its cousin, the flu, albeit miraculously inept last year, and this, consider that. And so are many, many things dangerous, everyday things. Right now, from where I sit, and given the stats and the docs, it strikes me that this virus is far less worrisome than is the response, the fear induced by info pushers, by pencil peddlers, by vaccine sellers, and most incredibly by a global cartel of inexpert careerists in government teaching us how to starve, how to shed our social character, and how to depend not on ourselves, but on an intrusive state. While before we may have suspected that things weren't quite right, now, suddenly perhaps, we have a slew of evidence. No longer are we allowed to listen to our bodies, to rely on common sense, to call on intuition. Due protections, yes please, but not overwrought hysteria, given a tiny fatality of the very elderly or those with pre-existing conditions. Hospitals and doctors are pressured or bribed to add COVID-19 to death certificates. The tests don't work, and far less provide a reason to panic. The masks are unscienced, wholly unnatural for social beings, and the lockdowns are random and overtly politicized, and the advisors are invested big pharma brokers. This is quack. So what's the game? We know the game. They've told us the game. It's the New World Order. The New World Order, in a bid for UN-led global government to sound less intimidating, has been rebranded into the newfangled Great Reset. A wonderful surprise opportunity where we can build back better, to reform this world, to strip the human race of one's self-determination, of one's individuality, of one's talents, one's character, and instead to have its numbers succumb to a faux fab new society where we own nothing but are owned by society, or more truthfully, by a few elites running the show. It encapsulates Agenda 2030, where nations are neutered and cultures raised down, rich histories erased and opinion despised, our peoples rounded up into giant cities where they'll be homogenized into a puerile soup of pathetic, a tiny few set to decide our fate, the individual outcast, despised and hated. It encapsulates powerful intelligence and the Internet of Things, powered by 5G, where each and every aspect of our lives, from tea making to bowel movements, can be monitored and controlled. Now, much of this actually will be convenient, and many tasks far safer. The trade being free speech and thought, a quiet life, choice, and personal privacy, exchanged by diktat for the ultimate in Big Brother surveillance, and provided the curtain dwellers continue to deign to allow us to be online, to trade, to do anything at all, or even just to exist. I needed some tea. We're on the verge of living in this Bond villain scenario, an R.I.P. Sean Connery, where our lives can become imprisoned, sanctioned, or ended at the flick of a finger. It has been decided for us, behind closed doors, plutocracy metamorphosized into this all-powerful technocracy, the old family lineages made rich through war, banking, energy, drugs, and food supply, joined now by their big tech addendum, their overall pitch drip-fed to us by their mass media machine. There is no debate. There is no mandate. We are expected to comply. You are to accept that your job or business must be destroyed, your purpose repurposed, your family physically divided, you and your children state-owned right now, and when you don't agree, their police will and do beat you up. It's happening in Europe. It's happening in London, in the hallowed shadow of Nelson's column. Young or old, white or black, they don't care. Their puppet politicians are democratic fiction, no more useful than an empty stare. This is 1984. These are the foothills. This is the death knell for personal human endeavor. Humans made simple, our betters exceptional. Dare to think beyond the norm and your chips turned off and tough. And your neighbor will laugh at your demise because you were being silly and deserved your plight. And that is how your neighbor can convince itself that it is happy and fulfilled when actually he or she is inextricably confused, dehumanized, enslaved, the walking dead. You think I'm loco? Then do us all a favor, because none of this is not in the public domain, and look it up. Got kids? Definitely. Get off Strictly, the soaps and the soccer, and for goodness sake, look it up. No kids? Have some respect anyhow. We hold this world in trust, so please turn off the phone, the pap, pundits, porn, and look it up. Some of us have been expecting this scenario. Events like 9/11, self-satirized, strange love-like, by Building 7 having been so clearly demolished, Trump said so on the day of the towers, controlled demolition, live on telly, and by Dick Cheney's psychotic command to stand down NORAD while planes flew about for hours bumping into buildings, and the subsequent war on terror that was always only ever a contrived war on liberty, not least an excuse to wage a legal war on the wrong countries while drumming up an exodus of hateful hornets. All that woke us up. Many had been awake for much longer, and we thought them quirky. Many died ridiculed. We largely still are. Enough of us have shared enough knowledge, though, no longer to care. Instead, to feel empathy for those so desperately seeking denial for the sake of their sanity. The sand is safe. Even tyranny offers hope. Stupidity provides salvation. And Orwell was quite brilliant. I apologize. Now I'm being savage, and that is not fair, perhaps. We have been deceived. Us humans have a great heart. We want the best. We expect the best. We wish for the best. And all that is beautiful. And it is ghastly that perhaps our finest quality, our innate tendency to trust, or at least to hope, has been so sickeningly used against us. Not just us mere mortals, us ordinary people, who are never ordinary, by the way, but also often well-meaning officials and influencers. Even the names above aren't entirely bad. Perhaps that's a stretch for Tony Blair. And certainly weren't to begin with. Actually, all of us, each and every one of us human beings, we have all been coerced, manipulated by a hierarchy where the few are recruited, corrupted, then complicit, or speak out and you're out. And so it goes on, this despicable system. And as our social networks, from family to businesses and clubs, all attest, this is a self-perpetuating social model. In short, pyramids work, and on a need-to-know basis.
Okay, I'm going to hold that there and run into the break. So I'll play the rest. We're just over halfway through that. And yeah, blimey, I'll tell you, what a mess. Anyway, right, so you're tuned in to Revolution Radio. God bless you. And please support the place. Yeah, support the place. It's all, free and all that. Except it isn't, because we've got to pay for loads of stuff and all the rest of it. So, hey, support it. Coming back in 4 or 5 minutes' time. Go get a cup of tea. All right.
You're listening to Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com, and we'll be right back after this message.
Management would like to take a moment to thank the listeners and hosts for all their support that has made Revolution Radio one of the biggest platforms for free speech in an ever-growing dark world of censorship. Unfortunately, this platform for free speech has never been free. We need the support of the people. It is the people like you, yes, you, that keeps the station in the front lines of the battle against tyranny and oppression. Please help support Revolution Radio so free speech will not be silenced in a world that seems to be going deaf to the real truth. With your support, we will be able to become an even bigger pillar of light in a dark world.
Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, the #1 listener-supported radio station on the planet. Revolution Radio.
What the heck is the Truth Jihad? Hey, I'm Kevin Barrett, host of Truth Jihad Radio. Federal prosecutors, Department of Homeland Security agents, and curious passersby often ask me, just what is this Truth Jihad thing anyway? Well, everybody knows what truth is, but jihad is a misunderstood term. Jihad means effort or struggle. The greater jihad is the struggle to be a better person, while the lesser jihad is the struggle to defend the community. Prophet Muhammad, peace upon him, did say that the best jihad is a word of truth flung in the face of a tyrant. And that's what we do here at Truth Jihad Radio. Every Friday, 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern, 5 to 7 Pacific, right here on Revolution Radio.
Hey everyone, it's Barbara Jean Lindsay, the Cosmic Oracle. If you have questions about your past lives or future plans, need answers from the cosmos about your love life or career, or just want to keep your finger on the pulse of the planet, check out my show, The Cosmic Oracle, here on Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com.
Hey guys, Scorpio here. Join me every Saturday at 2 p.m. here on Studio A for the Scorpio Conspiracy Show, where we discuss the hidden agendas that impact our lives and uncover the secret societies and the shadowy elite who construct the reality that we are supposed to believe. So be there Saturdays, 2 p.m. Eastern Time, here on Studio A on Revolution Radio, and learn what's really going down.
Lost a little honey on the lone highway, left me for another on the lone highway. They killed Dirty Dog McGee on the lone highway.
Thank you for listening to Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com, the #1 listener-supported radio station on the internet. Please help support this station so this battle can continue forward. Revolution Radio! The opinions expressed on this radio station, its programs, and its website by the hosts, guests, and call-in listeners or chatters are solely the opinions of the original source who expressed them. They do not necessarily represent the opinions of Revolution Radio and freedomslips.com, its staff, or affiliates. You're listening to Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, 100% listener-supported radio, and now we return you to your host.
Oh, blimey. Oh, no. Oh, dear. Oh, for goodness sake. We're there. We're there. Oh, crying out loud. I think I just had a Biden moment. Right, second half of the Daily Chaos on Revolution Radio. I'm Olly Connelly. Thanks for turning up. And yeah, there you go. Right, so yeah. I don't know, in about half an hour, I think that Chris Boozy is going to be popping in to give us a bit of a chat about what's going on. We're going to be talking about FIRE FAUCI, the FIRE FAUCI Act. Congresswoman Green and all that lot. Trying to sort things out. Yeah, I want to play their press conference as well. I'm gonna run out of time, aren't I? If I'm not careful. Right. Okay. Let me just get back into this. Try and finish this diatribe. And where are we? Where were we? The first bit. Basically, it's all gone tits up. Yeah, it's all gone tits up. But people, they like to think the best, and completely hoodwinked. And so it goes on. Okay, continued. Oh, hold on. Oh dear, hold on.
A professional turned vocational.
There we go.
And on a need-to-know basis.
Oh dear, hold on.
There's a key element to this social pyramid that I've not yet touched on, but that, a professional turned vocational journalist myself, is particularly close to my heart, and that is journalism. I.e., where is it? It is there. There are some great conveyors of the most hazardous ingest that is info, but they're a tiny minority, nearly all instead being hacks or even shills, actors, offering not balanced news or honest opinion, but far worse, spewing views masquerading as news. In other words, liars and deceivers, agenda-driven frauds, most often, in fairness, because they need a wage. But nonetheless, the combined result is disaster. And that is what we are witnessing. Together with their media mates, it is these corrupted fakes, managed by corrupted fakes, whose employers are corrupted fakes, that are owned by the deeply corrupted and uncorrectable, the capstone elite that shape our opinion, that program us, that have us brainwashed, and who do plutocracy's bidding to herd and control us. And on the whole, till now at least, their snake oil has had us thoroughly poisoned, divided ruled, dumbed down, fearsome, distracted, and pliable. In effect, politicians are not the worst of us, nor even the ivory tower that tell them what to do. The worst of us, in effect, is the fourth estate, because it is that is supposed to hold power to account, and far from doing so, news outlets routinely collude with power to depower us, to create an apathetic public. Food comes with warnings and labels, and believe you me, so should news. Most of you, I suspect, already know this last bit, or if you don't, and in the internet age, just like me, you're learning fast. The defining events of our time are shrouded in lies. The most relevant examples to recent US politics are Orange Man bad and Russians. In terms of leadership, how is Mr. Trump bad? And aside perhaps from making the mistake of using some pretty typical barroom banter to boast about female conquest, what actually has he ever done or said that is bad? He's racist, is the oft riposte. Except he isn't. Go find the quote, by all means, in context, and correct me. Ditto his misogyny. He isn't misogynistic. He's a man, and guess what? Most men like women. That's why we're here. His media-managed reputation is one big smear. And as for his Russian corruption, Mueller found nothing, precisely nothing. And oh boy, did he try. And indeed, it turns out that it was Obama, Clinton, and Biden, among others, who conversely, were complicit precisely along the lines of what the media lied was Trump's malfeasance. Trump's impeachment offers another fine example of so-called journalists hacking truth to death, telling us the president was pressuring a foreign leader into investigating a potential political opponent before finding no evidence, but nonetheless giving cover to a political impeachment, ultimately for petty technical reasons instead. An impeachment that not a single Republican congressman agreed with, and that in another tellingly partisan vote was mocked by the Senate. It has subsequently turned out that, just as with the media's cherished Democrats having interfered illegally in a presidential campaign, and not Trump, it was Democrat Biden who used the vice presidency not just to pressure, but to bribe a foreign nation into sacking the lawyer investigating his son's scandal-clad business. Trump is not only exonerated, it is clear he was right to want to investigate the Bidens, not least a vice president with security clearance and then prospective presidential nominee having a proven record of using high office for family gain, of being compromised and susceptible to blackmail, in turn endangering the country and the Western alliance. Joe Biden even carved out deals with Xi Jinping while offloading stateside jobs to China. His son has cut deals and possibly cracked cocaine with China's top spy. The media's choice Joe having denied nothing, and who remains accused of using Obama's White House as a racketeering scam and worse, of being in the pocket of a despotic nuclear state and the kind of regime that operates concentration camps. If you trust the media, I ask you, given the Bidens' non-denial of the above densely evidenced allegations, where are the questions? Regarding the media's truth, I could go on and on and on and on and on, but I won't. There isn't time and my tea's gone cold and we must all get on with our day. But there's some reality, some truth about the truth tellers, almost in their entirety. They are hypocritical liars, a menace to society, disingenuous about free speech, bereft of balance, and more dangerous than any politician such as their power, and given a duly conditioned public trust. They work for global forces, not for America, and far less for the American people, and for any regular people anywhere, or at least in the English-speaking world, whose caustic rags and politicized personnel I can more easily comprehend, and some for which and with whom I have worked. So here we are, mere hours from Election Day, and America has a choice. Your choice, not that of the media, and a very simple choice to any of us that have managed the time to research the above. And here it is. You can choose the career politician, as if the idea of another career politician isn't sickly enough. You can choose the Build Back Better guy. That's right, you can choose the guy with the Great Reset slogan, such is their blatancy. You can choose the New World Order. You can choose the end of the United States of America, the foreclosing on your dream, the China pal crook that wants you muzzled, locked down, taxed, overrun, and ultimately communized. You can choose packed courts. You can choose no way back. And not just him. Ditto your congressperson, it, they thing. Ditto your senator. You can vote Democrat for China, the UN, for violence from those that are intolerant to democracy, for Antifa, for Soros. You can vote dementia, or really for Kamala. But either way, you can choose a demented dark winter. Or you can choose the orange guy, he that, like him or not, and sure he could be the ultimate psyop, but damn it to hell, that would be one hell of a psyop. A guy who has never been caught in a lie. Exaggeration for sure. Hype, I'm sure. But positive too, I'm sure. Encouragement assured, as surely leaders should be. You can vote for the businessman who brought jobs back from China, who scrapped NAFTA, who saw through the Great Reset and told it where to go, which in truth is why they want him gone, who ripped up the TPP, who created jobs, factories and energy independence. You can choose the bloke that built a border and stands on it, that stood up for soldiers, for vets, for the police, for law, for order, for families, for kids, that socks it to human traffickers who jailed, catch and released Biden's jailed. You can choose the peacenik who just bothered to go to Korea, and only the second president in my lifetime, Carter II, that has not gone to war. The He's Orange candidate, nominated for 4 Nobel Peace Prizes for his work with Israel and the Arabs in the Balkans and for his efforts to end endless war. You can choose the guy the globalists cannot tolerate, that their global's media denigrates, carps about, that their every column castigates, that their big tech seeks to obliterate. He who dares to put his country first, as every leader should, that believes in its people over politics, in culture, in choice, in respect, in values, in common decency, the guy that trusts in God. In short, you can choose a fast track to totalitarianism, a one-way ticket to a dystopian nightmare, or you can choose your liberty. I submit to you, having researched the facts and refused the spin, that the choice is not difficult. Your conditioning, then again, you might please consider. Do not allow the media, any pundit, including me, to program your vote. You vote fully aware. Vote on the basis of truth. Godspeed, America. Many of us from over the pond and beyond, we're very fond of you. Your ingrained pioneering spirit that whatever mistakes your nation has made, you represent, that you have demonstrated time and again, and the promise of which can take you to brighter and more brilliant days ahead. You are a beacon of hope in a world at grave risk now, right now, of losing its freedom. You do lead the way. The rest of us will follow. We will have our cultures and sovereignty intact throughout this world with the chance for great improvement, else we will all of us, at your behest, see our nations fall, destroyed, our peoples lost, ruined, enslaved. So hey, no pressure. Please, think, vote. And for pity's sake, Mr. President, kindly drain that bloody swamp. High hopes for T2, sir. Now you've cleared a path. This has been Olly Connelly with dailychaos.news. Kind regards, America. Here's to we the people. And bugger plutocracy.
Yeah.
Morning, afternoon, evening. Olly Connelly here
hold on.
with
Hold on. Oh, shut up.
News.
Oh, for goodness sake. Right. It's more relevant. It's more relevant. It's more relevant now. We can see. I mean, we could see before. But I think pretty much everybody listening, we've really got to fight. We've really got to fight, people. And that brings me on to Fire Fauci, the act, the press conference. Now then, let me see if I can pull up a bit of detail on that. I want to play some of the press conference. I mentioned in the first half of the show that I didn't get any kit last night because yesterday I watched 2 or 3 folks, bless them, sent me. They said, look at this, for crying out loud, look at this press conference. And I did, and it was the most amazing, I'm not joking, this is the most amazing press conference I've ever seen. The FIRE FAUCI ACT press conference just this Tuesday gone. And so the backstory for anybody that isn't quite sure, most importantly perhaps, the proposed law should create debate, triggering action. The law itself calls for an investigation and specifically would oust the unelected bureaucrat, Dr. Anthony Fauci, from his role at the National Institute of Allergies and Infectious Diseases, following his having been exposed by Senator Rand Paul and BuzzFeed's Freedom of Information Obtained email drop as having lied when he denied having assisted funding to the Wuhan laboratory that since it has become evident, was developing coronaviruses in association with the Chinese Communist Party, the EU, and the US, at least, and including from bats to produce viruses that could cross the species barrier to infect humans in what is known as gain-of-function research. Now, despite the above, Joe Biden has since, just in the last week or so, said he retains confidence in Fauci, and furthermore has shut down an inquiry into the Wuhan lab and the origins of COVID-19 that was started by President Trump's State Department. I don't know whether Biden is going to be pressured into reinstating that inquiry. Maybe that's up to us. Now, the potential of this proposed legislation, the Republican-sponsored legislation, is unlikely to pass, easily at least, in the Democrat-controlled House, and has been ignored or smeared as right-wing conspiracy theory by almost the entirety of the mainstream media, and at a time when partisan social networks continue to use tactics to suppress the sharing and discussion of such concerns. Nevertheless, more and more are talking about this and related matters, and it is noteworthy that Tuesday's FIRE FAUCI presser has been watched already by, for example, 90,000 people on the Fox Business Facebook channel alone. So those who are not talking about this should be talking about this. Please share. Now I'm going to play as much of this as I possibly can.
Thank you for coming, everyone. This is an important issue that we need to talk. The American people have endured terrible things over the past year due to the shutdowns from COVID-19. And I'm very proud to sponsor the FIRE FAUCI Act, and I'm grateful to my colleagues here for co-sponsoring this bill because the American people deserve answers. The FIRE FAUCI Act will bring Dr. Fauci's salary down to zero and also will require the Senate to confirm someone to fill his position. You see, Dr. Fauci was not elected by the American people. He was not chosen to guide our economy. He was not chosen to rule over parents and their children's education. But yet, Dr. Fauci very much controlled our lives for the past year. Dr. Fauci, there is a lot of information that needs to come out on him. And as you all have seen with the emails that came out, that he owes the American people a lot of answers, but he also owes the world a lot of answers. These are emails that are very important that you all need to make sure that you're sharing with the public because the public has suffered greatly.
I just want to say, as an aside, that this is Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene from Georgia, who is speaking at the moment.
Businesses have closed, small businesses have suffered. People have truly been depressed. Health consequences. People have died alone in hospitals and nursing homes. Children's education has been delayed by a year. And then we even witness suicide numbers going up, not in just adults, but young people, people in college, children in high school, children in middle school, and even younger. This isn't how our country was set up, and this is not how people should be governed. But yet it's Dr. Fauci, and through his advice that constantly changed, that is how things happened. You see, there's a lot of evidence and answers need to be found and answers need to be given. And the American people deserve the answers and accountability should be held for Dr. Fauci and all of those involved. And if American tax dollars went to the Wuhan lab and indeed funded this virus, which it's very clearly coming out that this is very much a man-made virus in a lab that has sickened the world and caused people to die. You see, people are really tired of there never being anyone held accountable, never anyone being fired. And that's why it's time to fire Dr. Anthony Fauci and give answers to the American people who, I mind you, this is the government that should be serving them, not the other way around. So I would like to go ahead and introduce Mr. Massey from Kentucky.
Thank you, Marjorie.
Another congressman.
I was honored to be Marjorie's first co-sponsor on this bill because I've said for over a year that Dr. Fauci needs fired. I realized this the first time he joined us on a conference call, and there were questions he couldn't answer and wasn't even concerned about answering. Like, when would we open the government back up, or the government and all the private businesses? When would we open it back up? What were going to be the qualifications for that, since he was going around to every state saying shut it all down? The other question he never answered, still hasn't answered, is what are the bad health effects from the shutdowns? You need to take a whole of health approach to the response to this virus, and he never did that. He's a political scientist. He is not a scientist. He's a political scientist. He has admitted, and it's hard to believe, but he's admitted that he fudged his own answers about what level would constitute herd immunity. He said, well, I didn't think the public was ready for that number, so I gave them a different number, and now I'm going to give a different number. And never in between there did the science change. So we need to fire Fauci. We need to do the investigation of the National Institute of Allergies and Infectious Diseases. And my hat is off to Ron DeSantis, who saw through this fraud early on. Florida chose freedom over Fauci. Governor DeSantis banned Dr. Fauci and Dr. Birx from coming to Florida and speaking to the government employees there and giving the imprimatur of the federal government to force these private businesses and schools to close. So with that, I will turn it over to Mary Miller. Sorry, Mary.
Another congresswoman.
Thank you, Marjorie, for introducing this important piece of legislation. I signed the FIRE FAUCI Act because it was under his direction and support as an unelected and overpaid government bureaucrat that the shutdowns and masking of our country was ordered. It's cost us, we can't actually estimate the costs. We will see in the future the actual costs financially, emotionally, relationally, and spiritually that had the cost to our country. From his emails and much more, we can see the extent of these mandates were unnecessary and not in the best interests of the American people. Americans deserve to know and fully understand how COVID came to be and make sure that this never happens again. Children have been out of school for over a year now. They face irreparable damage because these mandates were put in place thanks to Dr. Fauci's recommendations and selfish actions. The release of Dr. Fauci's emails detailing his views and knowledge of the COVID-19 virus makes this call for his removal all the more important. Among other things, Dr. Fauci was informed that the virus could have originated in a lab in Wuhan, China, before he publicly acknowledged that possibility. All the while, he stood by and allowed President Trump to be demonized for even suggesting that it came from China or that it originated in that lab. China gave us the virus and has left us with lasting effects. The only thing worse than an overpaid, unelected bureaucrat is an overpaid, unelected bureaucrat that doesn't tell the truth. Thank you.
Thank you for being here today, and I thank Marjorie for being the sponsor of this bill. It's an important bill, and like Representative Massey, I also have been calling for Dr. Fauci's dismissal for over a year. Look, if you want to be trusted, tell the truth. Dr. Fauci misled the American people, and he leveraged his position as a leading figure at the White House to become a celebrity, for Pete's sakes. Recently, a FOIA request revealed the truth about his dishonesty in broad daylight. Although he recommended double masking, privately, he admitted that masks don't work. Despite denying that taxpayer dollars were being used to fund gain-of-function research at the Wuhan Institute of Virology, privately he admitted to it. And while mounting evidence suggests the virus may have leaked from a lab, Peter Daszak, who sent taxpayer dollars to the Wuhan Institute for coronavirus research, thanked Dr. Fauci directly for dismissing that theory. There's one additional thing that Dr. Fauci should be remembered for. It's that while American small businesses were forced to close, emotional and mental problems developing all over this country, widespread economic malaise and dysfunction and displacement. Dr. Fauci, the highest paid government employee, was out posing for magazine covers and not tending to the matters at hand. And maybe ultimately, since he wasn't doing a good job at understanding and dealing with the scientific implications and the societal implications, maybe it was better that he was out taking pictures instead of dealing with the problem. The American people, though, were abiding by stringent guidelines, weathering draconian lockdowns, and lost their livelihoods only to be deceived by this unelected bureaucrat who was narcissistic in nature. Thanks to President Trump and Operation Warp Speed gave the American people the most effective remedy to thwart the virus, and in record time.
Vaccine
Trump's plan
took my
was
immune system.
targeted, aggressive, and completely transparent. Dr. Fauci could have joined the cause and helped usher our nation out of the crisis we faced, but he chose the path of hypocrisy and deceit. Who will ever forget him wearing a face mask while throwing out the first pitch when nobody was near him? And yet, while people were sitting next to him on either side, the face mask was down. At the same time, he was demanding that every American wear a face mask at all times. Dr. Fauci never missed a paycheck during the pandemic, but others did. I have friends and constituents who lost their jobs and lost their businesses. I think it's long past due that we relieve him of his duties. I thank again Marjorie and all my fellow co-sponsors of this bill. He deserves to be stripped of the taxpayer-funded salary that he so richly does not deserve. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm Congressman Paul Gosar from the great state of Arizona, and I'm very proud to be a co-sponsor of the FIRE Fauci Act with Marjorie Taylor Greene and my colleagues. Dr. Fauci's been lying for months about the origins of the Wuhan virus and has seriously mishandled the nation's COVID-19 response. Dr. Fauci has given contrary advice regarding the source of the virus, the transmission of the virus, the virulence of the virus, the efficacy of masks and vaccines, the efficacy of social distancing, and has demeaned anyone in the public health community that disagrees with him. Americans across the country have lost faith in our public health community because of Dr. Fauci. While telling Americans to trust science, quote, Fauci routinely contradicts the established science. We now know that what I've been saying for over a year, Dr. Fauci has continuously and deliberately misled the public at every turn. For example, Dr. Fauci said that COVID-19 was not transmissible by vapor, only surface contact. Then he said it was both. Today he says it's only transmissible by vapor, not surface contact. Fauci once said COVID-19 was not very contagious. Now he said it's super contagious. He said masks don't help, but he then mandated masks, urging them to be double when worn. He falsely required all deaths be recorded as COVID-19 deaths for anyone who died if there was any detectable virus, even if the death was an accident or a heart attack. These greatly inflated those numbers. Fauci knew that school-age children were not at risk, though he continued to advocate for school closure. He has ignored the best advice from scientists in his very own science realm in favor of fear-mongering and theatrics. Egregiously, Fauci even knew that the virus likely originated from a lab in Wuhan, China. Now there are over 2,000 emails proving that Dr. Fauci's ego got in the way of the facts over and over again. A few weeks ago at a Senate hearing, Fauci testified under oath that no taxpayer funds were used to fund the research in Wuhan. He then recently reversed himself and testified at a House hearing that, in fact, the National Institute of Health had earmarked $600,000 for the Wuhan lab to study the possibility that the bat coronavirus could be transmitted to humans. Can you say perjury? The truth is, Dr. Fauci is no scientist. He's an actor and deserves an Academy Award for Best Dramatic Actor in a Pandemic. He has completely abandoned science. Every time he makes a demand for more lockdowns and more useless rules, Americans lose freedom. Enough's enough. It's long past time that Mr. Biden fire Fauci, and that's why I'm proud to co-sponsor FIRE FAUCI ACT. And I yield back. I thank you.
Well, thank you very much. I'm Representative Buddy Carter from Georgia, and I am proud to be a co-sponsor of the FIRE Fauci legislation, which is necessary, absolutely necessary. Folks, let's understand. China sent us the virus and took our jobs. And what have we learned about the origin, which is extremely important? Now, I'm a healthcare professional. I understand how important it is to understand and to know where this originated from and how important time is, how important it is to know that information as soon as you can know it. But what happened? Now that we've seen the release of these emails, we know that what has happened is that Fauci was covering up. And who else was complicit in this? The World Health Organization? Yes, they were. And now we find out that even the Democrats are trying to cover this up. Why? That's a good question. Why are they trying to cover it up? And I will submit to you the reason why is because Donald Trump was one of the first to suggest that this came from the Institute of Virology. And they hate Donald Trump. That's why. Who else was complicit? Big tech. Until just recently, they didn't even want anyone to, they wouldn't let anyone post this on the platforms. They were complicit as well. Dr. Fauci has not given us any leadership at all. Folks, we need to understand, China is not our competitor. They are our enemy. They sent us the virus and took our jobs. They should be held accountable. We need true leadership. Dr. Fauci is not giving us true leadership. That's why he needs to go. Folks, this is serious stuff. If it weren't for Donald Trump and Operation Warp Speed, we wouldn't be recovering from this vaccine right now, from this virus right now with this vaccine, which I would submit to you that this is one of the greatest miracles, medical miracles of our lifetime, of our generation. To get this vaccine that is safe and effective out in this period of time. I can tell you from experience, being a pharmacist, I know how long it usually takes, 5 to 7 years. This is phenomenal that it came in this short a period of time and that it is safe and effective. But folks, we need to know how it originated. And Fauci has been covering up on this. The World Health Organization has been complicit in it. Big Tech's been complicit in it. Now the Democrats are complicit in it. This is something that's got to end. We need to fire Fauci and fire him now.
These are all Congress people.
I'm Bob
folks.
Good from Virginia's 5th District, and it's my privilege to support this bill, the FIRE FAUCI Act, and I appreciate Marjorie Taylor Greene, my friend from Georgia, for bringing this act forward and for all those who are co-sponsoring it with us. You know, after Dr. Fauci's emails were exposed, he went to speak directly to his supporters at MSNBC to do damage control. He said, a lot of what you're seeing as attacks on me, frankly, are attacks on science. Typical for him, arrogantly equating his continuously changing and confusing opinions and admonitions with the proven principles of science. However, on February 5th of 2020, Fauci said in an email, the typical mask that you buy in a store, a drugstore, is not really effective in keeping out the virus, which is small enough to pass through the material. Then, of course, he reverses course on the decades of research that supported that, and he supports every American wearing a mask, even our children, who are proven to be at tremendously low risk of infection, let alone illness from this virus. In another email on February 23rd of 2020, Fauci said that children have a very low rate of infection, which has been, again, proven to be true by their extremely low rate of infection from it, and more importantly, their illness from this China virus over the past year. Despite this, Fauci has supported the ridiculous policies that lock down our churches and small businesses, many of those businesses which are closed permanently and jobs which are lost forever, and people will never recover from that economically, closed our schools, our children. How will they ever recover from a year out of school when there is almost no risk to them to being in school? Needlessly masked our people, pretending, as the senator from Kentucky said, the theater of pretending that wearing a mask made a difference in the transmission of the virus when all the data and the research from decades showed that was not true. To this day, he even supports our children wearing masks going into the school year in September. That is child abuse. The consequences of what's happened over the past year under Dr. Fauci are egregious and catastrophic. A CDC study found that the percentage of emergency room visits have increased tremendously, and young people are increasingly suffering from mental health issues. A survey of 11,000 students ages 13 and up showed that after the school closures began, 38% felt more concerned about their mental health. 51% reported being more stressed. 39% felt lonelier as a result of these policies. In spite of Dr. Fauci, though, and because of the work of President Trump with doing what no one said could be done and getting this vaccine at warp speed, America has finally safely reopened, again, in spite of Dr. Fauci. Yet there are still states, including my home state of Virginia, that will inexcusably not fully reopen our schools and continue to mandate that our children wear masks. But does Dr. Fauci seem to care? He does not. He doesn't condemn these continued unscientific measures, and he seems primarily concerned with his own legacy, his book deals, his appearances on MSNBC and other pundits from the liberal left of the media. I could further mention his complicit support, as others have said, about the now proven erroneous effort to dismiss the possibility that the China virus originated in the Wuhan lab, and much more. So let's give Fauci all the time that he needs to get his story straight on MSNBC and other outlets. It's time to fire Dr. Fauci and stop using taxpayer dollars to pay for this nonsense. The fake news media can have him full time as their opinion pundit. Thank you. And I welcome Congressman Mel Brooks.
Well, I too am a proud co-sponsor of the FIRE FAUCI Act. The reasons that have been given have been excellent. Let me add a little bit of my own. Dr. Fauci is consistent in just one thing, and that is inconsistency. Why should anyone believe anything Dr. Fauci says when he so quickly takes the opposite positions only a short time later? Dr. Fauci's emails prove that since the onset of the COVID-19 pandemic, his private communications were often very different from what he said publicly. On masks, in February of 2020, Fauci declared there was little effectiveness to wearing masks. Yet in January of 2021, Fauci declared that double masking was, quote, common sense, end quote, and, quote, likely more effective, end quote. Yet the science is that some masks, like N95s and N100s, work very well, while some masks actually make the spread of COVID-19 worse. On the one hand, with respect to the economy, Fauci stated he cannot, quote, imagine shutting down New York or Los Angeles, end quote. Yet, shortly thereafter, in March of 2020, Fauci recommended a 14-day quarantine, then turned that into a month-long quarantine, then turned that into a 2-month-long quarantine, followed by an endless stream of attacks on states that, quote, opened too early, end quote, and praising cities and states like New York that stayed closed. Never mind that liberty-based states like Florida and Texas had a far superior COVID-19 death rate compared to shutdown states like New York, New Jersey, and Massachusetts. In 2020, Dr. Fauci, without adequate scientific data, speculated and repeatedly protected China and dismissed the communist Chinese leak theory. Yet today, the scientific evidence is overwhelming that COVID-19 is a man-made virus and that the virus was man-made in the Communist Chinese Party's Wuhan bioweapons lab. The question is not COVID-19's origination point. The question is whether its dispersal was accidental due to negligence or recklessness, or intentional, a question only the untrustworthy Communist Chinese Party leadership can answer. And in that vein, let me emphasize the kind of damage that has been done here in the United States of America by COVID-19 and around the globe. The Communist Chinese Party is financially responsible for these liabilities. You've got trillions of dollars that have been spent by the United States government that otherwise would not have been spent. You've got trillions of dollars in damage to the American economy that otherwise would not have been damaged. And you have unlimited amount of personal injury from deaths and injuries suffered because of COVID-19 and the Communist Chinese Party's intentional, accidental, or reckless malfeasance at the Wuhan bioweapons lab. In sum, America needs a COVID-19 expert we can trust. Trust in Dr. Fauci has been shattered. Hence, Dr. Fauci must go.
You've heard all of the concern and the outrage from my colleagues and co-sponsors for the FIRE FAUCI Act. They are expressing the concerns of the American people. These are concerns that span across politics. This isn't a Republican issue. This is not a Democrat issue. This is about people. Now, the question is, and I ask all of you, how do you feel about being part of a human experiment with COVID-19? As that is what we have been over this past year. And the reason why we deserve answers is because Dr. Fauci's emails with him himself stating that he funded to the Wuhan lab this gain of function research. And here's the question that needs to be asked. Why would there ever be viruses created, taken out of nature that can be shared and passed among bats or other creatures, and then harnessed and changed into some sort of virus that can be spread among people? There's a word for that. It's called bioweapon. And were we all victims of a bioweapon? We demand answers. And Dr. Fauci should give them, and everyone involved needs to be held accountable for that. China also needs to be held accountable. They lied, and as we know, many people have died. Some of the very first people to get the virus were Wuhan lab workers. And yet here we had Dr. Fauci playing cover for all of this. He told President Trump millions are going to die. He was saying that on CNN in March, but yet in his email, he stated the spread rate and the death rate was going to be several 100,000. Imagine that, advising the president one way, but yet in his own personal emails, admitting the truth. Dr. Fauci must be fired. People that are not elected by the American people should never be governing our country, should never be controlling our lives. We've got to hold him accountable. We have to hold China accountable, and they need to pay reparations. This is something that we're demanding. Thank you very much. Please cover his emails. Get the truth out. Let's not divide people with politics over a virus that has killed people. Let's bring America together in healing this nation by finally holding someone accountable and helping people. Thank you very much.
Alex Nazarian from Yahoo News. You call it the China virus. You suggest that it's a bioweapon. There's no evidence of any of that. And we're also in the middle of a spate of attacks against Asian Americans. Aren't you just feeding that pretty irresponsibly?
No, absolutely not. Absolutely not. And you're not going to turn this into something else. This is a virus that killed all kinds of people. It has nothing to do with anyone's race or ethnicity. It has nothing to do with any of that. So no, not at all. Yeah.
Let me follow up. Oh,
sure.
Check this out.
Let's be real clear about something. I'm very disturbed that you would even ask that kind of question. Chinese Americans are not necessarily members of the Chinese Communist Party. Understand that the Communist Chinese Party rejects virtually every provision in what is known as our Bill of Rights. Recognize that the Chinese Communist Party does not believe in the kind of republic that we believe in. And for you to associate the Communist Chinese Party with Chinese Americans, as you have done, I would submit is egregious and wrong. But with respect to bioweapons, Marjorie Taylor Greene asked a really good question. Now, I serve on the House Armed Services Committee and on the Science, Space, and Technology Committee. Ask yourself, America, this question. When we talk about gain of function, let's be a little bit more specific about what we're talking about here. We're talking about a dangerous virus being changed so that it is much more communicable, meaning people are much more likely to get it, and or it becomes much more deadly. Now, why would any country do that with a virus to make it more contagious and make it more deadly, if not for militarization purposes. And if you look at the Communist Chinese Party's background and its relationship with the military, it leads you but to one logical conclusion.
Representative Carter, during his comments, you've made the comment that vaccines are safe and effective.
Yes.
The other folks standing up here, have you been vaccinated, and what is your message to your constituents about the need to be vaccinated so that we can move beyond this pandemic? I would like all three of you others to respond.
Can I respond first? I just want to make sure everyone understands, as a member of Congress, as a member of the Doctors Caucus, as a healthcare professional, I thought it was important for me to set a good example. I went through the clinical trials. I actually went through the Pfizer clinical trials so that I could set a good example. And I was fortunate enough, it's a double-blind study, as you know. You don't know whether you're getting the placebo or the actual vaccine. I did, in fact, get the vaccine. It was safe. It was effective. And I encourage people to use it and to take it.
That was Carter. Can't say I trust him, but listen to this.
One of the biggest scandals during this whole pandemic is the cover-up that's been committed by Fauci and the CDC, especially the CDC, about the effectiveness of immunity that's conferred after a natural infection, after you recover from that. They've completely ignored that. They want everybody to get vaccinated, even those who don't need vaccinated. And the science, if you follow the science on this, the Moderna trial showed there was no benefit of the vaccine to those who recovered from infection. The Pfizer trial showed there was no benefit to those who had recovered from infection from the vaccine. A recent study with 52,000 people at the Cleveland Clinic, 1,300 plus of whom did not receive the vaccine but had prior infection, showed that none of them got reinfected symptomatically. And then if you want to compare the efficacy of immunity from recovering from COVID to that of the vaccine, the biggest study out there is the whole country of Israel. Tel Aviv University, 6 million participants in this study, 6 million data points. And it showed there's virtually no difference. Actually, it showed a little bit, but probably not statistically significant. A little bit better immunity from natural infection. And before you all report this, I'm not saying go out and get the virus instead of getting the vaccine. The vaccine can save lives, it's certain, but there's no need, the science shows this, there's no need to get the vaccine if you've already recovered from COVID. And there's no need to expose yourself to that danger. The CDC knows this. They admitted to me on a recorded phone call that I'll be glad to give you that they knew they were misreporting the results of the Pfizer data.
This is Thomas Massey.
Well, first of all, it's none of your business, but I'm going to tell you, I'm not vaccinated. And until there's some science, by the way, I have a master's of science degree from MIT. I'm not a virologist, but I can read data. Everybody just needs to read and don't put your head in the sand. Look at the data. I'm not going to get the vaccine until there's data that shows that it will improve upon the immunity that's been conferred to me as a result of a natural infection that I had.
That was Thomas Massey, Kentucky.
You know, the fact is that the American people were duped in the past year and a half. And while this has obviously been a very serious virus, we all know folks who've been affected by it, sadly, ultimately affected by it and lost their lives. However, from the very beginning, it was known that this virus put at risk those who were seniors, those who were obese, and those who had other health factors. And it was almost no serious risk to other folks outside of that. 0.2% of Americans have succumbed to this, nearly 0.2. And the vast majority of those either, again, had other health factors that were serious, they were senior citizens, or they were had obesity issues. And so thankful to the president for the work that he did, the former president, to get this virus available to those most at risk, most in need. But the American people were duped into believing that a mask made a difference when decades of history and study and research show that that wasn't the case. And then as it applies to the vaccine, in the past year and a half, I believe it's been demonstrated that everyone by now has some sense of either natural immunity because they've contracted the virus and they know it, natural immunity because they've contracted the virus and they don't know it, they're not susceptible to it and they didn't contract the virus, or they've gotten the vaccine. But no one should be shamed or forced into receiving the vaccination. No one should be shamed or forced into admitting whether or not they've received the vaccination, because it's private health information that no one should be asking. Because if you've been vaccinated, you shouldn't care if someone else has been vaccinated because you've been vaccinated. And no one should be shamed or forced into wearing a mask. Thankfully, that's begun to be lifted here in the House because it didn't make any difference.
Thank you. Good answer. I'll follow up with that, and here's how I see it. I stand with the Americans that want their privacy, and HIPAA gives us rights to privacy with our medical information. And so I appreciate you asking, but that is my right to keep my medical information private. And I also want to point out something that everyone fails to remember to talk about. The vaccines are not FDA approved. They are experimental. Again, I'll say that. The vaccines are not FDA approved. They are experimental. So while Mr. Carter was brave enough to participate in a study, there's other people that just don't want to be a part of the human experiment for vaccines. And that's okay, because thank God so many people survived this virus. My husband's 97-year-old grandmother survived the virus. Thank God. Now, sadly, we've had people succumb to it. But it's people's choice, just as Mr. Good said. And, if you get the vaccine, good for you. I support you in the freedom to do that. If you choose not to get the vaccine, that's okay. That is your choice. And that's the wonderful thing about our country, and we need to maintain that. But we also have to fight hard to make sure people are not discriminated against because they choose to either get the vaccine or not get the vaccine. They shouldn't be treated any differently. And that's not who we are as Americans. We don't want to be doing that. So, yeah, one more question. Yes, sir.
So China has a proven track record of deceiving the world, whether it be the cover-up of the Tiananmen June 4th massacre or the various religious persecutions that continue throughout China. What makes you think that they'll cooperate with any legitimate investigation, and how should they be held accountable?
Well, that's a great question. Why would they cooperate, right? Because they definitely don't have to. They're already doing everything they can to cover up the information about the Wuhan virus. Thankfully, we've had 2 brave defectors that have come forward and given information about the virus, information that they saw in the Wuhan lab. And we're grateful to those people. They're risking their lives to do that. I think what we have to do is we need to investigate this. And that's why the FIRE FAUCI Act is very important. We want to know, what did they know and when did they know it? And then this is something that we need to all come together on. I really ask every single member of Congress and Americans all over the country, let's come together on this one. Let's find one that we can come together on, because all of us have been affected. Thank you very much for coming today. I'm sorry, we've got to finish up. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah. So let's just take that line again. The vaccine is not FDA approved. It is experimental. I mean, we knew that. We did know that. But when you hear Congress people saying that, it's a lot harder for the media to just bury it, it seems to me. Or at least it would be if between us we can force their hand. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is what we have to do. That's what we have to do. You've been listening to Daily Chaos, and my timing is probably terrible. I've got no idea what sort of seconds I've got left. Chris Boozy didn't turn up, which is probably just as well, because we wouldn't have had much time to have a chat anyway. But I just found that press conference astounding, absolutely astounding. Look at the transcript. Check out the transcript, guys. I've put the link in the chat. Look at it. Look at the detail. You know, share, copy and paste it, whatever. The video's there as well. The links are there. You've been tuned in to Daily Chaos. I'm Olly Connelly with Revolution Radio. And here's what plutocracy.
revolution.